Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my channel, Mindful Samadhi. I am Dharma Samadhi, and it's that time of the week where we do a question and answer session. So I hope everyone is doing well and you're having a good week so far. All right, let's get straight into it then, shall we? So, question one, I've got, how do I know if I'm making progress? What should I be expecting? That's a pretty valid question. All right, so if you're new to meditation, it tends to happen in increments, okay? So it can often be quite subtle, especially in like our everyday practice, all right? So it's good to have yourself a lot of patience and try not to cling to experiences too much. Or if you have any kind of feelings of attainments, try not to hold on to these and attach and cling to them too much, okay? Because progress in meditation can at times be quite slow, and we need to treat our meditation as more of a gradual process, okay? So patience and consistency is definitely the key here, okay? I'll give you some brief examples which can sort of point to verifiable signs to progressing, okay? So after some time, you should find that you'll have like an improved ability to sit and maintain the object that you're concentrating on. So if that's anapanasati, if you're concentrating on the primary object being the breath, or even if it's the rising and falling of the abdomen, you should be able to eventually be able to sit longer without constant fidgeting or giving up or wanting to stop, okay? The mind will essentially stay with the breath or your chosen object far more consecutively before wandering, okay? So that's a good sign. And also you should find a sense of better concentration. So what I'm saying here is the mind will wander less less wildly, I suppose you could say. And when it does start to drift, you'll be able to notice it wandering sooner rather than later. And then obviously you'll be able to return back to your primary object more gently and quickly, all right? You're also more likely to experience more calm, more peace, and equanimity in general off the cushion. So not just on the cushion, also off the cushion. So day-to-day life should start to feel less reactive. You'll also find yourself less irritated or getting upset as often. Therefore, that will encourage us to recover faster. And even notice things like hindrances, like doubt, restlessness, sloth and torpor, and these kinds of things. You'll find that they will start to gradually become weaker and weaker, all right? This is one of the clearest sort of real-world markers that we can use to help to see our progress. Another thing you might notice is a greater sense of mindfulness and clear comprehension in your daily activities. All right, so your mindfulness will be more alert and more aware of bodily postures, movements, feelings, and also thoughts when they do arise. And in regards to everyday mindfulness, you should be able to catch intentions before acting on unskillful intentions, okay? You'll find even like a reduction in things like craving, clinging, like anger, aversion, things that previously might have hooked you quite strongly. You'll find a sense of those, like a sense of relief or a bit more easement on those things as well. So for example, things like food, when people praise you, things like anger, and even sensory pleasures, they'll start to lose some strength, okay? You'll feel more content with what is, and you'll have less desire towards the notion of either wanting or not wanting things. So subtler perception of phenomena, so especially in Vipassana meditation, you should find these things. You'll find things like sensations, thoughts, and emotions will tend to feel more impermanent, so anicca, and also basically the three marks of existence. You should start to feel or grasp more of a sense and understanding of the anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So impermanence, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and obviously non-self. Okay. What else is there? You might also notice the arising and passing nature of things more vividly, or you might even see how everything starts to condition everything else. So less identification with the self. The constant inner narrative, I am this, I need that, I want this, I want that, will eventually start to quiet and soften somewhat. You'll eventually see thoughts, as just thoughts, and not connecting or attaching the word I or me to it as much. So that's kind of some suggestions and recommendations I could suggest. Some other things that you'd probably start to expect things that you'd probably want to expect over time, I'd say, in the earlier stages of your meditation, so if you're a beginner, so, perhaps the first few weeks or months of your practice, the mind wanders constantly. There's lots of hindrances, lots of frustration and doubt. Questions may arise like, am I even doing this practice right? You might have occasional peaceful moments, which may feel encouraging, but also they're quite transient and fleeting. So progress in the beginning, it will feel quite slow, okay? Now, the middle stages, when I refer to the middle stages, I'd say more like months and years of consistent practice or continual practice. That's when concentration will gradually start to stabilize, all right? So your sitting meditation, it should become more reliably calm. Daily life, it changes and it becomes more noticeable to you, and you should almost become more patient and less reactive in daily situations as well. This should also see the beginning of the insight into the three characteristics, or like I mentioned earlier, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. They'll start flickering, into your practice a bit more once you get into those stages, those middle kind of stages. Now, in reference to deeper stages of your practice, so more long-term, or you could, we'd say probably years of practice, or even sort of at a retreat level. So, you're doing consistent, if you're going to retreats quite often, this is probably more the deeper stages. And then this is where you'll start to hopefully get things like the progress of insight. So we call this the Vipassana jnanas. You'll find those will start to unfold. So this will be the knowledge of arising and passing at a deep level, the disillusion of fear and dread and misery and disgust, desire for results, and equanimity towards formations as well. These can feel intense and even quite dark before they, start feeling more of a positive side. Sometimes in our practice, we go through quite a dark stage of our practice, which can be quite difficult to persevere and get through. But most practitioners, when they get to this stage, they do have to go through a bit of a dark phase in their practice. Things like jhanas, when we get into the jhana stages, the absorption stages, you'll find that they're kind of like profound absorptions, and they're varying states of joy and tranquility. They're quite nice. You'll go through those stages, and you'll also face various challenges along the way as well. But once you get to these deeper stages, this is perfectly normal, okay? So no need to panic. Things like doubt, physical discomfort, boredom, over effort or attachment to pleasant states. Again, these are normal, and they're often positive signs that you're actually progressing. So don't worry and continue to practice diligently, okay? I would say that the most reliable kind of yardstick that we can use in Theravada meditation isn't necessarily how peaceful our sitting meditation actually feels, but more about how much greed, hatred, and delusion will start to decrease in our life, okay? Will start to calm down and release itself, and you'll find a lot of easement in that field. It's even safe to say how much things like sila, like our moral discipline or virtue, samadhi, and also panya will increase strongly and will start to develop at a deeper level. So sila, samadhi, and panya, which is just basically means sila is like, for those of you that aren't aware, moral or ethical discipline, we can refer to that. Samadhi is more commonly generally referred to as concentration, or we could also classify this as something like unified awareness. And then panya being wisdom, okay, or a deeper insight. So keep up with consistent daily practice, and it's really important, it's imperative that you are honest with your practice, okay? Especially if you do have a teacher. It's very important to share your progress if you have a teacher, all right? And most importantly, you need to trust the process. The Buddha himself described the path as like a gradual kind of like the ocean, when you're at the shore of the ocean, and then it gradually starts to deepen the further and further you go out. Meditation, we can kind of use that similarly in our practice as well. And that is what the Buddha kind of referred to with our meditation practice. It's like being at the shore of the ocean and then gradually walking out. It's a slow and gradual process that eventually will go deeper and deeper, okay? And always remember, good things take time. So persistency, effort, diligence, discipline, these are all really important factors, all right? So hopefully that's covered your question about making progress and your expectations. Personally, don't expect too much in your practice, okay? Just like I say to my students, just treat it like you're having a shower or brushing your teeth. Now, hopefully we do this every day. And it's, almost like an unconscious thing. We're automatically doing it. Meditation, you want to treat it like that. It's part of our daily life, and it's just what we do. Once you do that, you should gradually start to see progress. So don't have expectations, wants and desires, clinging and attachment, and just do the practice, okay? And then fruits will start to arise, okay? Now, the second question number 2, is doubt normal? Okay, so I'm assuming you're having doubt. What if I doubt the teachings, even the practice, and also, I'd like to know, is enlightenment actually possible? All right, so looking at this question here, it looks like we have some doubt in the practice, and this is also perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with this, and it's actually very common. Okay, so it's completely normal, really, in meditation practice, and it's one of the most common, and I'd say the most persistent obstacles, especially for Western practitioners or anyone new to Vipassana or like a more moderate, intense kind of practice. Okay, it's very common. So in the Pali Canon, we actually refer to this as, you could say, skeptical doubt. In Pali, we call this vicikiccha. And this is actually listed as the 5th of the 5 hindrances that obstruct our concentration and insight, okay? It's more commonly referred to as skeptical doubt. We could also call it like indecision or a lack of confidence, all right? That tends to almost like paralyze. It's kind of like a paralyzing action and progress, I suppose you could say, in our meditation. And specifically speaking, it would almost take form like, there's different varying ways. It could be doubt about the Buddha. It could be doubt about the Dharma, do the teachings actually work? We could have questions like, is Nibbana or enlightenment actually real? We could have also doubt about the Sangha. Are there really people who have obtained enlightenment? Is there doubt? There could be doubt about the training or the practice itself. We might start questioning ourselves, like, am I even doing it right? Is this method valid? We do find this as well, once you get taught a specific method on how to do a kind of Buddhist practice, and then you do it for a while, and if you're having this high expectation of getting results and you're a very result-driven person and you don't get the results, this can quickly lead to the mind or yourself changing things up and trying to, moderate and change the practice because it's not seemingly working for you. And then all of a sudden you're like, maybe I should do this way, or maybe I should do this way. And then you go off the beaten track of how, meditation was originally discussed and described on how you should be practicing. So it's very important that we stick with whatever we've been taught, especially in Theravada tradition as well. If you're getting taught Goenka method or Mahasi Sayadaw method or whatever kind of method you're getting taught, it's good to stick to that method and give it like a very solid effort. Don't be chopping and changing your practice. This can also cause a bit of a deterrent in your practice and can also prevent you from gaining any further progress. So just be careful about that. We could also have doubt about one's own capacity, like enlightenment, like freedom. Does it really happen for someone like me? Am I capable of doing this? These things are, obviously will also arise in our practice. And more broadly speaking, doubt about past and future lives, or even the Four Noble Truths itself. All of these different things can arise. This hindrance or these hindrances, we call this akusala, which is unwholesome because it blocks effort and investigation. That's the vicikiccha I discussed earlier. This is a paralyzing kind that can make you hesitate and second guess everything, or even for some people just completely give up. All right, so the mind naturally questions big claims like complete liberation from suffering possible. These kinds of things, the mind will start to arise and will start to question these things. This is skeptical doubt 101. Modern culture especially emphasizes doubt as intelligence. So it feels smart to question everything endlessly. Early practice, it stirs up old conditioning. And when results aren't immediate, the mind fills the gap with stories of maybe it's not real, or maybe I'm not capable, or am I doing it right, and so on and so forth, etc., and so on. So just be a bit mindful and also be a bit careful with these kinds of contemplations when they arise, okay? It's especially strong as well, I'd say, during phases or periods of our purification process in Vipassana, where phenomena may feel unstable and even at times quite miserable. So we need to be careful. There was many teachers that I've read books and studied on, like Mahasi Sayadaw, Ajahn Chah, Sayadaw U Pandita. There's many of them that I've looked at, and they describe things like doubt as rational thinking. You think you're analysing or being logical, but it's often just the hindrance itself that's feeding different narratives to avoid the discomfort or the sustained practice. All right, so we need to be super careful. Now, what I'd say, I'll kind of give you the same analogy I did on the first question, like I can give you a very broad range on what to expect, and how we can kind of work with it, I suppose. So doubt doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing. Doubt's not always a bad thing, because it often means that you're actually practicing deeply enough to stir up these kind of thoughts and emotions and bring them to the surface. So sometimes, doubt, it can be a sign that we actually are progressing in our meditation, okay? It tends to lessen as confidence builds, all right, through direct experience. So, a good method to do this is to recognize and then label and name it. The simplest and most powerful antidote, I would say. So when doubt arises, note doubting, or uncertainty, or thinking, doubt, something like that, okay? So this is a Mahasi Sayadaw method, and it's quite effective from the Burmese tradition. So just seeing it clearly essentially will weaken its grip. It can't hide if you shine light on it, okay? The second one I'd probably say is don't fight or argue with it, all right? Arguing back in your own head usually strengthens or it adds more fuel to the story, okay? So instead, investigate. Where is the doubt, like where are we feeling the doubt in the body? How does the mind feel when it's caught in it? What's the qualities? Is it restless? Is it heavy? Is it spinning? This turns it into a vipassana object then, okay? And then return to the basics. Keep doing the practice anyway. Even if you feel 0% confident, discipline helps eradicate doubt. So sit, walk, label, and note, okay? I cannot emphasize this enough. Consistency builds evidence, okay? That it builds evidence that the method works. So you might notice hindrances arising and passing more clearly over time. And then build confidence through small verifications. So notice small changes, clearer mindfulness, moments of calm, seeing impermanence directly. Observe and be aware of all these things, because these accumulate and counter the nothing's happening, it's impossible kind of narrative that we may have, all right? And also, I'd probably recommend setting a clear aspiration as well. Remind yourself why you're doing the practice. It's to end the suffering for freedom out of compassion, okay? This gives direction when doubt clouds everything else. And another one, if you guys have a teacher, then talk to your teacher, okay? Because doubt loves isolation. It doesn't like it. So, it loves it. It loves being isolated. So talk to a teacher. It's super important, all right? Sharing, it often reveals it's just a common hindrance, not a personal flaw that we have or we may have. So talking about these things with a teacher or a noble person that's been doing the practice for a longer period of time and hopefully has some educated clarity on these subjects, they may be able to assist with you, and even just talking about these things and bringing them out in the open kind of extinguishes some of these things as well. So over time, especially with consistent practice, doubt will weaken dramatically, I can assure you. Now, at the stream entry level, so we call this Sotapanna, things like skeptical doubt or vicikiccha is completely eradicated as one of the first 3 fetters which are broken, all right? So until then, it's normal for it to come and go, and sometimes more intensely than others, all right? So you're not alone in this. Almost everyone hits a hard point at some stage in their practice. This is also very common. Almost the fact that you're noticing and questioning these things, it shows mindfulness is actually starting to work and incorporate itself at a stronger level, all right? So keep going, gently, but persistently, okay? That's a very good question. Hopefully that's helped quite a few people out that do have any skeptical doubt in their practice, because it is very common, especially when we're beginning and even at the intermediate stages. If we, like I said, if we're very result-driven people, this can cause problems, okay? So it's good to understand these things, all right? So the next question we have is question 3. Can I meditate if I can't sit still due to health issues? All right, so short answer there is yes, absolutely. You can and you should meditate even if health issues prevent you from sitting still or lying down comfortably for long periods. In the Theravada practice, meditation is not limited to postures like just sitting cross-legged, for example. The Buddha explicitly taught mindfulness in all 4 postures. So whether it's sitting, standing, seated, walking or lying down, you can practice in these different postures. And this was also described in the Satipatthana Sutta and also elsewhere as well. So the goal is continual mindfulness and insight into the nature of body and mind, and not forcing a particular body position. So walking meditation, often best starting point is sitting in a painful or impossible, okay? So this is a core practice in retreats. So Mahasi, Pa Auk Sayadaw are examples, and they balance concentration with gentle movement, all right? So walk slowly back and forth on a short path, indoors or out, noting sensations like lifting, moving, placing, or even simpler things like left, right, or even stepping, all right? The benefits of doing this is it counters things like drowsiness. It builds strong mindfulness of the body movement, and it's also easier on things like the joints and backs, the joint and our back, especially when we're doing things like prolonged sitting for a long period of time. So, you know, even with chronic pain, arthritis or mobility issues, we can find it more suitable, okay? The other option is standing meditation. So this is kind of like a middle way between sitting and walking. This is also quite a common practice in samatha meditation, all right? I spent a bit of time in a monastery in Sri Lanka called Nauyena, and I noticed some practitioners there, they were practicing standing meditation, and it was quite interesting, and I also practiced a little bit myself, and it is quite effective, especially when it comes to focusing on anapanasati, and you know, things like sati sampajanya, and just noticing daily movements around internally and externally. It's quite a good way to practice, okay? So the best way to do this is sort of stand with your feet hip width apart. Your knees, you want them kind of soft, not too firm standing, and you want your arms to be relaxed and your hands clasped together. And then just focus on the breath at the nostrils, or alternatively at the abdomen, and then just notice the sensations in the feet, the legs, and even the whole body for that matter, and just observe and have the awareness. This can be useful if sitting hurts, but if you need more stillness, then walking can provide. So it's kind of that intermediary of sitting and the walking, it's that middle part. So it's actually not a bad idea. It energizes us also without being too active, and it can also help with the monkey mind, the chattering mind, and also sleep, restlessness and sleepiness as well. It can also aid in. The other one is lying down meditation. So the reclining posture we can use. The Buddha actually recommended, it's called the lion's posture. And this is when you lie on the right side with your legs straight and the right hand under your head, and then the left hand along the body. And this avoids drowsiness and falling asleep, okay? So avoid laying flat on your back because this will cause sleepiness. or pain, and prop yourself up with pillows for support if you need to, okay? Now, rising and falling of the abdomen, if possible, because breath or pain discomfort, it may arise. So the rising and falling of the abdomen is a good thing to observe if you're doing the laying down meditation, in my opinion. It's best for shorter sessions as well. And when you're also not feeling too good, like if you're feeling really sick or fatigued, laying down meditation can also be quite beneficial. And look, at the end of the day, if you do doze off and fall asleep, there's no problem. Just gently note it and continue, or even just switch from laying down to standing or walking meditation, okay? And obviously if you fall asleep, there'll be no labeling and noting because you're asleep. That's fine. You can always try again the next day. So this posture is good for people with severe limitations, all right? So start here and then build your way up. Now, mindfulness in daily activities, any posture, the most accessible, I'd say for severe restrictions, and also practice while reclining in a chair. You can also practice propped up in bed, even using a wheelchair, or necessary movements like shifting position, eating, breathing, exercising. Note whatever is predominant. So if it's pain, itching, aching, if you have some intentions to move, or you want to shift or move posture or something, it can be like sounds and thoughts. In this regard, I'd probably say the Mahasi method of noting and labeling works well here, okay? Labeling sensations gently without having any judgment. This turns limitations into practice opportunities. So pain becomes a direct object for insight into impermanence, anicca, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha, and then non-self, anatta. And then also working directly with the pain and discomfort is a powerful vipassana technique, and it's a good approach as well. So you can also use any suffering or pain that you might be going through, and you can actually utilize that as part of your meditation object as well. So when pain arises, whether from, perhaps be it the posture or even a sickness or illness, don't fight it and go against it. Instead, observe it equanimously, okay? Have a level mindset and just observe it. Note it and label it and just observe, okay? Now, the Mahasi method, you could if you notice a pain in a specific area, you can just note it, shift your attention off of your primary object gently, move it to the specific target area of pain, and then just note and label pain, or stinging, or throbbing, or heat, cold, etc., depending on what specific sensation you're encountering, and then slowly just watch how it changes. It might gradually intensify, or more than likely it will slowly fade away and disappear, okay? This probably will bring rise to some sensation in another part of the body, and then we just rinse and repeat, go back to our primary object until the time comes where we need to shift our awareness again. Now this reduces identification. This is my pain, and often what it does is it lessens the perceived intensity over time, all right? The Burmese tradition's really good in this aspect. Like Mahasi Sayadaw really emphasized having patience with unpleasant sensations, because they can dissolve or become manageable with sustained non-reactive noting, all right? Research on mindfulness, like including Theravada-inspired practices anyway, they support this. It can lower pain and also the perception, and it can also improve our tolerance over time as well. So my advice with this is start short. Just do shorter periods, okay? Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, and then sort of break it up over several times during the day until you can start building up some momentum. Use cushions, chairs, bolsters, medical aids to try and minimize as much strain and pain that you may be going through. And if it is the case where the pain is extreme, then obviously prioritize medical care first, because meditation complements, it doesn't replace treatment, all right? Combine metta as well, loving kindness towards your body. So may this body be at ease, can soften resistance. If possible, consult a teacher. Experience, with illness and adaptions, many online retreats, they now address these kind of things. So that's also quite beneficial. So what I'm trying to say is your health condition doesn't disqualify you from doing meditation. It can be actually quite contradictory, and it can even accelerate insight by making impermanence and unsatisfactoriness more vivid, all right? So the Buddha actually praised diligence in any circumstance, all right? So it's good to understand that. So keep your intention clear, develop awareness, and inevitably this should reduce the suffering. You're already on the path by the sounds of it, so just by asking this question. So just keep up the practice. Hope that makes sense. Now, the last question we have is, I'm experiencing lights and sometimes vibration. Is this progress, or should I look at it like a distraction? Okay. I mean, things like this, you need to be honest and try and have a look and see how it makes you actually feel yourself. Be honest and, what kind of feelings are you getting from this? So this is the Vedana Upasana. Are these good feelings that you're experiencing? Are they negative feelings, or are they kind of neutral feelings? Experiences like things like lights, and we call them nimittas, vibrations, energies, surges with like things like bliss and tranquility. We call this sukha or rapture. They're very common, and they can genuinely indicate progress in our practice. But they can also become distractions or even hindrances if they're mishandled correctly. So the key is discernment. These are signs of deepening concentration, samadhi, or purification in insight, vipassana. It's not the goal itself, and they must be approached with equanimity and, making sure that we don't have attachment and clinging to these things as well. So signs of progress here, like phenomena, will often arise naturally as the mind settles and hindrances start to weaken. So lights and nimittas can be like a learning sign, evolving into stable counterpart signs. So Patibhaga nimitta, we call this. So bright light, or even perhaps some form of luminous sphere or something. And generally this will signal access concentration. So upachara samadhi, approaching things like absorptions like the jhanas. Okay, so it's definitely a positive marker of unified awareness, and definitely a reduction in distractions. Okay, vibrations and energy surges, or even we could call them electrical fields, I suppose you could say. These will frequently manifest as piti, okay, rapture, one of the jhana factors. Piti can feel like waves or thrills, or like prickling, shaking, even like some, kind of like surging energy going through the body. It's actually a natural byproduct of relaxation. We call this like energy building, or virya. And what it does is essentially it's like the body and the mind are releasing any tension left over, any residual tension left over. It's releasing that, and the result is this piti and rapture and these jhanic states starting to arise. In vipassana, intense bodily sensations, so including things like vibrations, they can arise during the purification phases, and generally showing increased sensitivity to things like impermanence. Things like bliss and joy and sukha, this mental ease and physical happiness, and it's generally accompanied by rapture and piti. So in jhana, it's profound and it's also sustained. Even in lighter states, brief waves of bliss, they generally will indicate the mind is calming and letting go of hindrances, all right? These align, we could say these align with the 5 jhana factors. So initial application, sustained application, the piti, the sukha, and then finally the one-pointedness, all right? Many practitioners will report them as encouraging milestones: concentration, stabilization, mind brightening, and also body, like the body energizing as well, like that sense of energizing itself. When they do become distractions or hindrances, the danger is this clinging and attachment, or even at times misidentification. So we could class this as tanha, the craving factor. Thinking this, a lot of people start, once they get these profound kind of experiences, they're like, is this enlightenment? Or am I getting there? Is this liberation? And, they start chasing that now for pleasure. And in, Vipassana or insight traditions, for example, like Mahasi Sayadaw's, these can appear as the 10 imperfections of insight. Upakilesa vipassana. And that's generally during the knowledge of arising and passing away. So they sort of come in stages, like you'd have the stage of with lights, in reference to lights, like the illumination stage. So that would be like the vision of like a bright light, could be perhaps a white, yellow light or something. It could be like a sort of like an ecstatic rapture, you could say, like a intense kind of very positive feeling, like an intense kind of piti, and then we'd have passaddhi, which is a tranquility, and then of course the other factors we would be like is the sukha, which would be the bliss, the confidence, which also brings faith, saddha, exerting ourselves and doing it, the exertion factor as well. This will also bring rise to assurance, and like a sense of, strong confidence in our practice as well. And then of course equanimity factor is another role it would play. So attachment to these stages, when they do arise though, you'll find the meditator would generally get very excited, over effort, and also the clinging and attachment will start. And what this does, unfortunately, it leads to imbalance. It can also lead to restlessness, and also bring rise to our pride and ego. So we must be very careful. Lights, they might dazzle and distract us from noting phenomena. Bliss might turn into craving a lot more as well. So these surges might feel overwhelming and cause fear, and also aversion at times as well. So a good teacher will generally warn that yes, these are beautiful, but they are also very deceptive. They're very deceptive signs of progress. But if they're grasped correctly, they will stall insight and become new defilements. So be very, very careful, okay? My suggestions on ways that we could probably handle them more skillfully is just recognizing them, being aware when they arise, without excitement. Have this equanimity, okay? Have this level mindset to it. And just notice them objectively, okay? Notice them as an object. Seeing light, vibrating energy, vibrations are surging and the bliss arising and things like that, the pleasant feelings, This Vipassana style of labeling, it prevents the identification. So don't chase or suppress, just let them come and go, all right? In Samatha, gently including them, supporting the object, for example, entering the nimitta for absorption, and then again, in Vipassana, you want to sort of return to your primary object of the breath or the abdomen, all right? And again, it's imperative that we just note them as impermanent phenomena, all right? Make sure that we check for balance. Are we making the mind clearer, calmer, and more equanimous? These are questions we need to be looking at when we start experiencing these kinds of things. Or perhaps it's agitated or attached or distracted. These can always show their face when we start going through sukha, piti, rapture, tranquility, and things like this. So true progress shows in reduced reactivity off the cushion, not just intense experiences, okay? So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, in short, we could kind of say, like, these are signs that usually indicate positive progress, especially early on, signaling samadhi, like concentration, building on our insight, purifying, not mere distractions, all right? But treat them as passing phenomena, not ultimate attainments, because they're not. They're just part of the path, okay? The real measure remains, in decreasing, like in us decreasing this greed, hatred, and delusion in our daily life. That is a good way we can measure this kind of thing. So cling lightly, note diligently, and keep going, okay? Because many great practitioners pass through these phases before more deeply gaining stability or before insight arises. So keep at it. And they're all really good questions that you guys had today. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out, because they were very valid questions, and I think that they will benefit quite a lot of you out there. So hopefully that was a good Q&A session, all right? So hopefully what I mentioned made sense to you guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Helps the channel out greatly, and we'll see you guys maybe towards the end of the week, but I'd say probably next week, okay? So Terawan Saranai, sadhu, 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 and have a blessed week, noble friends. Thank you very much.